Hey, y'all doing? Before we do anything else, I want you to look at my hair. I gave myself my own haircut. It took me over a week, but I finally did it. I think it's the best haircut I've ever given myself. I cut all the hair off of my back. I'm not going to show it to you because I haven't seen it yet and I don't quite know what it's looking at. But hey, there it is. Uh, I came here to answer questions that I got in public. You know, I found out, usually I don't wear any makeup when I'm out and about, and so people don't recognize me. But lately, um, I've been putting on makeup every day because it cheers me up. This is me being the new me, trying to do new things to find some new avenues towards happy. And so more people are recognizing me at the stores, and it's cool, it's fine. It used to be a thing where if you recognize me and or you said something to somebody, but I would just kind of scatter off, or I would say hi and keep going. But if it's always the aggressive people that stop you, and there's always the sweet, quiet, retiring ones who look and then it's whisper, whisper, whisper. And I thought, you reward the aggressive ones with a response, but you don't reward the quiet ones. And I would have been one of those quiet, like if Wendell Pierce walked into a room. My heart would start palpitating. I just love that man. I would be, oh, so excited, oh, so excited. But I would never say anything to him because I'm in social circumstances fairly shy. But wouldn't it, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if I did run into Wendell Pierce? He turned around and I said, oh my God, it's Wendell Pierce. And he turned around and said something to me like, hey, how you doing? Nice to be. And I thought, I'd love that. So whenever shy people come out, I think it's her, I think it's her, I think it's her. I said, yeah, it is me. Come here. And then here's my favorite thing to do. They always tell me, my mother loves you. My mother loves you. And I say, well, let's call your mama. Is she home? And I said, dial it and just give me the phone. And I get on the phone. I said, Hortense, what's up? And it's so much fun. That to me, it's just so much fun. Uh, Now, sometimes I'm on my way somewhere and I can't do all of that, but when I can stop, I do because it's an exciting moment for them, and bringing them joy makes me feel better and also helps me get out and just talk to people because I haven't been doing a lot of that because, I've been, doing the grieving thing. Uh, but I'm much happier these days, just saying. But I ran into a young lady the other day and it was interesting. She was about to get married. And she says, oh my God. You just, and she remembered my before your vows. And she says, do you have that compatibility test? And I said, first of all, the compatibility test was some crap I made up that answered questions about, made me understand who you were as a as opposed to compatibility with the other person. And there were some random questions that popped into that over the years. I find if I know have the answer to that, I can see more about that person. It's really bizarre, but and she wanted, I want to get married and blah 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 blah. And I said, first of all, compatibility test nothing. It was something I did to explain this, that, and to help me for some insight with you because I've only got you there for with commercials and everything 18 minutes. So, and I do have background on them, but anyway, she was asking about that, and I said, because I'm known to deal with marriages and I've had a successful one, a very successful one. I say very successful because we got to the end, and I'm glad, it took us 25 years to get it just right, but once it got right, it was real right. And even when it was wrong, it was right in some respects because you know how it go. I mean, you wouldn't know me if it wasn't for him. I had abilities he didn't have, and he had abilities I didn't have, and we put them together. And but anyway, I told her, I said, be careful about the advice you take. Make sure you know what's odd or wrong with the individual who is giving you advice, because people think they're being objective when they're not. They're leaned on by their community, their culture, their people, their color, their 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 political. They're leaned on by everything, and what they know to be true may not be true in the culture that you're in, or what they know to be true may be skewed by their own emotionality. I wrote this book called Dear Sonali, Letters to a Daughter I Never Had, because I had six sons and no girls, and I really wanted a girl because my mother was just fantastic. We had the greatest relationship, and I wanted to recreate that with a daughter of my own. I remember when I went to ultrasound with that last baby, I had to have ultrasound. I was 35 years old, pregnant. And then I saw the needle because they were going to give me amniocentesis because I was so old. And I said, "Oh, no, I don't need to do that." And she says, "Well, while I'm here, I've got the ultrasound on your belly. Do you want to know what it is?" And my husband said, "No, we don't want to know." And 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 I looked at her, and she looked at me and she says, "Well, how many kids you got?" And we said five, because he had four from his previous marriage, and we had already had one. And he goes, "Well, what are they?" And I said, "They're all boys." And she said, "Oh." And I was like, "No." She said, "Yeah, I'm looking right at it." And so I had a bunch but we had boys. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, dear Sonali, you know you're getting on when things like that happen. I was talking about also part of my problem is that I'm a tangential thinker, so that gets me off space. I used to go to speeches and have a keeper of the thought, somebody in the front row. Does anybody have a keeper of the thought? Because if I get excited, I'll go off on, and then I have to remember the thought. So I'll ask her, "Yo, keeper of the thought, where was I?" And they tell me. But anyway, dear Sonali, and I had a whole chapter on my lean, where I'm weird, what scares me, what excites me, because all of the information you give is skewed by how you feel about it. That's all I want to say. And I told her the two pieces of information that I really thought. I said, "I can't give you advice about whether you should get married. I don't know enough about you, at least, you know what I mean? About what you particularly should do. I do have overall advice that I think everybody should do. And one is go to a marriage counselor. Eric and I went to a marriage counselor before we got married for six, whatever sessions. And we both took tests. And we took tests, and they were compatibility tests, but not in testing whether we were compatible to one another. It was whether we as individuals were compatible with the institution of marriage, of being married, because there are certain people who gravitate to it more easily. 10 was like, "Man, you just, marriage is your thing." And Eric got a 4, and I got a 1.7. So basically, I had no business getting married. I should have been living in a cage with a in a cave with a couple of dogs. But the thing was, he said you're gonna have trouble. And here are the areas where they will be. And that it was like that brother was reading the future. We had every single solitary problem he told us we were going to have. And because we knew we were going to have it, we kind of recognized it when we saw it. And in year 7, when we got a little confused, he saw A, I saw B, we went to him and he told us it was C. So that's how that works. And and the only other thing I told her was, "I want you to list 5 things you don't like about him, and to ask yourself whether you can live with them long term." And she said, "I don't know if I can have 5 things I don't like about him." I said, "Well, then you don't know him well enough." And she, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I can give you 20 things wrong with me and 20 things wrong with my husband. I love us both." I said, "There's something wrong with all of us. We've got weird, and it's not wrong. I say wrong, and it upsets people. It's a value. What are his 5 biggest quirks that annoy you?" Yeah, you gotta plan for it. You can't just think love will take care of it. No, marriage is a job and you have to work it. Love is the feeling that gets you that job. Dating is the interview process, but once you get a high, you can't kick back. I lost my wedding band the other day. Lost so much weight. Sucker fell off my finger somewhere in the house. Don't know where it is. Which is one good thing is I hardly leave the house, so it's probably here somewhere. I probably didn't leave it in public because I'm rarely in public. But I was in public and I saw that young lady. And the time before that, a woman rushed up to me and started telling me about her divorce, but I was like 6 weeks widowed. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, I can't manage to care about your husband because I just lost mine and burst into tears. And I don't even really think she cared. She says, but Judge. And I'm like, oh, and then kind of walked away. And anyway, I don't know. That's what it is. The only thing I want you to come away with is this. Just because somebody has successfully done something does not mean they can tell you how to successfully do it. People on here with the dating advice always offering panaceas and, if you do this, that will happen. And what do you bring to the table? They ain't even asking the right question. What do you bring to the table? Economically and stuff. That was the least important thing between E and I was what we economically brought to the table. It's what we emotionally, spiritually, and ethically brought to the table. And when we both came to the table, loving each other and caring for each other like that, we hooked up. I had abilities that would have gone untapped if this brother hadn't come up under me and just went whoosh. We had none of the criteria that everybody says is important. When people popping them balloons and all that, everybody wants to make the biggest decision off the smallest amount of information. That is so wrong. You got to give this much information before you get this much uh decision out of it. Because if you jump to conclusions or just listen to people because, oh, I like him. He knows all about this and that. Let me believe him about this other thing. Then you get into trouble. You make assumptions. You got 10 cents worth of information. You can't get $1 worth of opinion out of it because that means you borrowed 90 cents of nonsense that is going to be very hard to pay back. There's interest on the stupid tax. I mean, it's the stupid tax. You don't pay your taxes, there's a lot of penalty and interest. So avoid the stupid tax. Don't jump to $1 worth of penny with 10 cents information. Collect all 100 pennies first. Or at least get 52. Y'all have a good day. I'm having one. I'm feeling better and I got a great haircut. Well, not a great haircut. I take that back. But it was a personal haircut. And it's not embarrassing. That's all you can ask for.